Okay, so now we've got this basic page. The next stage is as follows. Go into SSMS, open up SSMS, open up a query editor window as we've done before. Let me just do that now. I'm going to click on new query. Enlarge the view, say to 200%, so everything's big and easy to read. And make sure you are, again, at this point, it's up to you whether you decide to make a new database completely or just put everything in my DBase. That's up to you. I'm just going to use my DBase. It's not very important for us. So I'm going to say use my DBase. And I have to say that in this case because if you look carefully across the yellow status bar on the bottom, right now the context is that of the master database. Right? So here you've got the system database, so you've got master by default. You see that? All right, so down below it says that also across the yellow status bar, lower right-hand corner, it says master. So I'm going to switch to my DBase. Okay, I hope you've got that. Next stage in the process, take a look here. I'm going to begin by adding a table. So I'm going to say create and then table. Like that, I'm going to call it employees table. And I'm going to make the fields that define the structure very simple here. I'm just going to say emp ID for employee ID, integer as the data type, so whole number 1, 2, 3, and so on. Identity 1, 1 again. Seed with 1 and then add 1 every time you add a new record, for example. Identity 1, 1. Make it the primary key, so everything is identified in some fashion. And then the only field really that we're going to add to this table will be the name. Now again, at this point, you may want to add a first name and a last name, right? Because remember, when you design basic tables, you want to keep the pieces of information discrete, atomic, and easy to put together. Easier to put together always it is, as Yoda might say, than it is to separate when it's messy and entangled. Okay? So I'm going to say here first name as an example like that. I'm going to say nvarchar 200. And again, I'm going to use nvarchar because remember, in real life, you might see stuff written in many different languages, many different scripts. So nvarchar for that purpose. Make it 200 long, nice and big. Okay, put a comma, and let's just add a last name also. Why not? So last name, nvarchar 200. And close that, make sure everything is closed properly. All right. And then put a comma after primary key to separate the fields, and that's it. So we begin by making a simple table. I'm going to push this down one line, just like that, and arrange these fields a little bit. So I can move them as a unit by doing Shift and then Tab, and that moves them backwards as a unit. Shift plus Tab on your keyboard. And then if you hit Tab, it moves them forward as a unit. Just Tab by itself forward, Shift plus Tab backwards. All right, okay, so highlight all of this and give it an execution. Make sure on the bottom it says command completed successfully. So the next stage here, take a look. Notice that I left these, as you can see here, without the not null or something like that. So the next stage in the process, let's just add one record for our purposes. I'm going to say the following. Insert into, and I'm going to say employees table. And then values, and I'm going to say here, between single quotes, John, comma, and then Smith, like that. And you don't have to add the ID because remember, it's an identity field, which means it's generated automatically and we don't have to worry about it. All right, so insert this into the table, hit execute. And hopefully on the bottom you will see one row affected. That's what we want to see, that's good. So lastly, let's confirm this has been saved. Always confirm at every step, I'm telling you. Select star from employees table. One thing I've learned is don't assume it has a word just because you typed it. And then execute. And let's see. Right, employee ID, first name, last name, good. Right, on the left side, right click and refresh the views and the tables on the left side. In Object Explorer, go into my DBase. Go into tables, go into employees table. All right, make sure everything is visible there in the columns. Emp ID, primary key, integer not null, correct. Notice that first name and last name could be null the way we have it specified here. All right, under indexes, you should have some basic index pk underscore employee underscore some number, as you see there, with some letters in it. You see that? And it's clustered. Remember, clustered means sorted by that key. So only one is available per table because that physically sorts the data. All right, so make sure you save everything nicely. And now let's take a look. Go back into the web page. And the first element that we're going to add will be a details view. So from the toolbox on the left side, type details. And drag and drop a details view into the div as shown here. And this time, to separate things out a little bit, I'm going to break everything over multiple horizontal lines like this. All right, you can even get rid of the height and the width. Not really important for our purposes. We just want things to automatically adjust it to the size of the data that we display. So a basic details view. That's all it is. Now here you may want to rename the ID to something more meaningful. So for example, I will say emp details view or something like that. Okay, emp for employees detail view. Again, you are free to name things as meaningfully as you need to. Keep that in mind. You don't have to name them the way I do. Or you might type DV, short for details view, and then employees if you like. Some people will do it that way. In other words, they would type DV and then employees like that. But again, that's up to you. Make it meaningful. That's the key. All right, make sure you're saving everything the entire time. Okay, the next stage in the process is to go to design view for a second. And this is the basic layout, not very interesting. So go back into source view and make sure you have this. Again, please be sure to pause the page if you need to and just look through it and make sure everything is synchronizing at each step. I'm going to break these up over multiple lines. Remember, the way they look here doesn't matter, right? As long as they're all present, it doesn't matter. All right, I'm going to save. And now I'm going to go over back to design mode and I'm going to add a connection. So SQL data source, drag and drop that in there. Okay, I hope you've got that. So go back to source view for a second. Make sure you've got this basic SQL data source. And then I'm going to stack this over horizontal lines. It gets so like that. And maybe let's rename this. So we'll say that this is the employees table data source or something like that. Or if you like, again, you can leave it with the default name for our purposes. I don't think it will matter too much. All right, so save it. And the next stage is make the connection. So go back to design, right click on the grid view, go over to employees table data source, and then click on configure the data source. You got to configure it, right? You got to add it and then configure it in a separate step. Configure means actually connect to the server. So this is stuff we've done before many times. All right, select the server name, SQL Express. Right down below, select the database. All right, go over to my DBase, click OK. Give it a second to kick in. Click Next. My DBase connection string, that's good. Click Next. All right, from here, make sure you select the table you want to connect to. So that is the employees table. And again, make sure if you click on Advanced now, right, you're connected to the employees table, click on Advanced. Make sure you select the one that says Generate, Insert, Update, and Delete statements. All right. I'm just going to select the individual fields also. All right, and click Next. Test the query. You've got one guy in there. That's good. Click Finish. And then just enable paging, inserting, editing, and deleting. There you go. So the next stage obviously is to run this at least one time to confirm it's working. Now remember, this is coming directly from IIS, not IIS Express. All right, so now let's give this a go. Hit Google Chrome for a second. I'm going to bring it up. Let's see what happens. And once it comes up, you should see something similar to what I have here, okay? Remember, it says in the address bar, dashboard.home/main.espx. Okay, ASPX that is. All right, I'm going to enlarge the view here. And if you see this basic details view control, right, with the edit, click on the edit, let's see what happens. And you should be able to edit at this point. Well, first of all, imagine Over here for Smith, we put a comma and he's the third Smith or something, and then just hit update and make sure that takes. Okay. If you click on delete, you should be able to delete. Click on new for a second. Okay, I'm going to specify a new first name. I'm going to say here, so Mario Rubio or something, and I'm going to hit insert and make sure that takes also. So you've got John Smith and you've got Mario Rubio, and notice that the employee ID is now automatically changed over to 2. It's automatically added because we had identity 1, 1 present. Okay? I hope that's very clear to you. And again, if you need to delete, you should be able to delete also. Now keep in mind the way the numbering works. I want to go over this. If I hit delete at this stage, right, and I get rid of Mario Rubio and I click new, all right, I'm going to add now, say, for example, Amidala, like that, Jones or something, and I'm going to hit insert. Notice that when I go over to 2, she gets the employee ID 3, right? She doesn't get the deleted one. So apparently SQL Server keeps track of which ones have been used. So notice that this gets 3, not 2. All right, let me shut this down. Now remember, friends, if you've been following along with me, you may have gotten an error message, right, that says something about the logging in. So I hope you took the step in that case of configuring a login on SQL Server for the web page. Okay, that would have been a nice small exercise for you to remind you that's necessary. But I'm going to do it now one more time. So again, hit Google Chrome. Obviously, I had the login set up, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to just connect directly. Give this a second here to load. And remember, I've removed the login. I want to remind you what happens when you do that. You get one of these error messages, correct? So then you've got to take this bit, just copy it without the quotes, right-click and copy that, and then add it as a login to the server. So let me shut this down for a second. Go back over to the server, SQL Server that is. Okay, expand the security node on the server and add that as a login. Let me collapse those other ones. So security node, right-click, and then you log in. We've done this before, nothing new. I'm going to paste that into the box. Right down below, select the default database. That would be my DBase. Nothing new. Go over to user mapping and map it to a user. So I'm going to select from here my DBase. Nothing new again. And down below, go over to data reader and data writer and just click OK. Make sure you've got this, right? Make sure you've got, where is it? On the bottom, IIS app pool / dashboard. And make sure that, this also under the databases node, under my DBase, and then under security, under my DBase, it adds that also you've got that there, IIS app pool / dashboard. Just to be sure everything works correctly, okay? Let me launch the page one more time. Remember, I had the login already configured. I showed you how to go through the process. I removed it. And now I'm going to log in one more time. So hit Google Chrome again. All right, and notice that it's back as it should be. That's what we want to see. All right, with the records that we saved. Let me collapse the page here. Turn it off. Okay. And that is it for this one. So I'll see you next one.